Hey, first off, it's very nice to meet you. Been reading your work for years, and
Sorry.
I especially liked most recently your piece on Pat Summitt, and I thought that that was a piece that must have been incredibly difficult to write. And for some expository on it, you were basically talking about the awkward entanglements that the program was kind of put in by this really tragic situation, and I felt like it was something that a lot of people were thinking about, but nobody was really saying because of the sensitivity revolving around the issue. How difficult was that for you to write? What was that process like?
It was difficult because, clearly this is a very sensitive issue, as you mentioned, and you don't want to be disrespectful. I've interviewed Pat Summitt many, many times, and she's definitely one of the sports figures that I totally respect. But at the same time, everyone has some semblance or is a little bit cognizant of what this disease does to you over time. Now, I'm not a doctor. I don't know how fast it'll progress. A lot of that depends on how healthy you are and a bunch of other factors. So we don't know. But in the back of my mind, me having so much respect for her, I thought, if this disease progresses rapidly, more rapidly than they expect, if anything happens, I would just really hate to see her put in a bad position where, and now that we all know what's going on with her, it's going to be some scrutiny. If there's a bad play, a wrong call, um, if there's some strategy questions at any point in the year, people are going to be thinking at the back of their mind, is this the reason why? And I think to some degree, they have those challenges all the time with like Joe Paterno. That's another guy. Even though I saw him, let me think, at the beginning of the season, and I thought he looked really frail. And yeah, he's had a few accidents being there at Penn State, and you just wonder, like, are they putting Joe in a bad spot where he may embarrass himself? So I kind of looked at it from that perspective.
Yeah, I mean, did you feel kind of a duty to give voice to that? Because I felt like a lot of people were thinking it, but they might not have been. I don't know if bravery is the right word, but they didn't want to say it. You write a piece like Sally Jenkins wrote about Pat Summitt, and that was a great piece to be sure. That's just assured. You're just assured of praise all around. You're risking quite a lot when you write what you wrote about Summitt. But did you feel a sense of duty to do it? Is that why you did it?
Well, I always, I guess that's if I had to, I don't know, think of how I would describe my style as a columnist. Um, that's how I've been. It's like asking the question or at least posing something that makes people a little bit uncomfortable. I mean, it makes me uncomfortable to even throw that out there, but at the same time, I'm thinking like I can't be the only one sitting here thinking and wondering, how is this really going to play out for Pat Summitt, and might it play out in a way that would be kind of, I hesitate to use the word disrespectful, but at least maybe dishonoring everything that she's built. So they're tough questions, but in a way that's kind of my job. I'm supposed to either ask them or wonder about them or throw them out there. And I've done it in other columns, sometimes well, probably sometimes not so well, but I think you at least have to try.
Speaking of tough perspectives in columns, I remember there's a piece by you from years and years ago about it was a reaction to the whole Robert Ory Steve Nash thing when Ory body checked Nash into the scores table, and then a bunch of people were suspended. And you wrote a piece that was kind of crediting Robert Ory a little bit, and I just I it didn't make me mad, but I had a friend who actually was quite angry about the piece you wrote and actually emailed you and was impressed that you emailed him back. And I'm wondering, do you remember what the reaction was to that? And did you catch a lot of hell for writing that at the time?
Um, yeah, I did catch some hell for that. I'm trying to like loosely remember everything that I wrote in that column because they tend to blur together. But I think generally speaking, I didn't have a problem with what he did. But I'm kind of an old school NBA fan. I don't mind hand checking. None of that stuff ever bothered me. I prefer defensive games. I prefer physical games. And I think what may have gotten to people is that I said, like, if this wasn't Steve Nash, I'm not sure it would have been as much overreaction as it was. I mean, it was the playoffs. Hard fouls are supposed to happen. I'm not saying that you have to like pile drive a guy, but the whole point is with every bit of physical contact, you're constantly having to send a message like, "Hey, I'm here, and you have to come through me." So I didn't have a problem with Robert Horry being physical. I mean, was it cheap? Yeah, it was cheap, but it's the playoffs. That you just can't let someone else have their way. And I think because the Suns, the style of basketball that they play, that a lot of people were enamored with them. And Steve Nash, obviously a big star. People wanted to see Phoenix make it to the finals because they're a fun team to watch. And I, for one, am crazy enough to actually appreciate the way the Spurs play and have for a long time.
Well, yeah, and you've always been big on that. You've been big on that kind of old school Pistons in the 80s style of basketball. Do you think that this particular era that we're in with the hyper offense, it seems like even though the Suns didn't win the championship, they influenced the league. Do you think that this is worse? Do you not prefer this style that we have today?
Well, it's hard to say because I do feel like we're seeing some offensive wizardry that we've never seen before. Just how different players are compared to, when I kind of came of age as a basketball fan in the mid to late 80s. It's just like totally different. So I think that's a big part of it. I don't dislike offense, so I don't want to make it seem like that, like I'm not about offense. But I just would like it if they gave at least some credence or they allowed you to play some defense. Like I wish hand checking never went away. I was all for hand checking, and I think if some of those defensive things were allowed, you would see players forced to broaden their game. Because think about it, like LeBron James. We all know, and everybody's been yelling for years. Dude needs to get in the post. He needs to be smarter about his shot selection. He needs to stay away from fall away 25 footers. We all know this, but maybe if people were allowed to be more physical with LeBron, he would have been forced sooner to address his lack of a post game. So I think it goes kind of hand in hand.
Yeah, for that, really quickly making a point. I think that the rule changes have made a post game. Yeah, we're trying to make you comfortable.
Now all three of us.
Format. I was just going to make a quick point about how the post game has been legislated out of the NBA with the different rule changes. It's not as important anymore. So I was just going to make that point. But I'll pass it back to you, Beckley, to the left of me in the box to the left.
All right, yeah, as we see it to the left. Jemele, that's all the time we got. This was really awesome. I hope we can do it again soon. Thanks so much for coming on.
This was very fun, I have to admit. And now I feel like this is Hollywood Squares. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, next time we'll let Zach talk to you, but he was saying creepy things.
It's probably
before,
better
so
that, it's better that I didn't.
What were you saying? Now I gotta know.
I'm not allowed to play my favorite marry, sleep with, kill game with you. So.
Oh really? Why not?
I don't know. I was told I'm not allowed.
Because it's never gone right.
Yeah, because it always goes wrong, no matter who's a part of it.
Always just horribly wrong.
Is that what happens? Like people.
If you can imagine Henry Abbott turning whiter, it happened. It was terrifying.
Oh. Okay.
And losing more hair.
If you want to put that out there.
All right, Jemele, take it easy.
Okay,
Thanks, Jemele.
take care, guys. Thank you.